and we saw Dillon Gabriel go 11-11 with the first team, Shedeur Sanders go 11-11 with the second unit. So that was really the big wrinkle today.
Yes, and of course, it was the first time that we have seen Shedeur Sanders get any of those coveted 11-on-11 reps. Of course, again, it wasn't with the first team offense or against the first team defense, but it's progress. And that means that he's going in the right direction, that the arrow is pointing up. He's coming up the learning curve. So that's good for him. And I actually thought just overall, he had a better day than Dillon had today. He completed more passes. He was more on point.
He entered the league as an afterthought, slotted dead last behind a lineup of quarterbacks the franchise pretended could carry them. Treated like a marketing stunt rather than a real player, he was cast aside before he ever took a professional snap. But now, everything has changed. The lights are set to shine on him this Friday night, and the NFL world will finally see what they tried to hide. The Browns didn't plan for this. They never envisioned Shedeur Sanders under center, not this soon, and certainly not as the starter. But through injuries and circumstances they couldn't manipulate, the door has swung wide open. This preseason game against the Panthers isn't just a warm-up, it's a reckoning, and it's long overdue. From the moment the draft ended, the writing was on the wall. Sanders was boxed out in favor of names with nostalgia, hype, or history. But all of them, Flacco, Pickett, Gabriel, are now sidelined or resting. And the only one left standing is the one they least expected to be ready. The Browns didn't design this moment. They were forced into it, and the irony is impossible to ignore. Shedeur wasn't brought in to compete. He wasn't developed. He wasn't even groomed. He was stashed behind players whose best days were behind them or never arrived. He was placed on scout team duty, not because he lacked talent, but because the organization didn't want to confront the possibility that he could actually be better. They feared what that would mean for their narrative. The pick itself was controversial from the start. The ownership distanced themselves. The front office tried to spin it. Sanders was a fifth-round pick, but everyone watching knew the truth. He had the tools, the stats, and the pedigree to go in the first. Instead, he was shelved, and the moment anyone asked questions, the team deflected, minimized, and ignored what was unfolding in plain sight. Even in camp, when he showed precision, patience, and command, they buried the highlights. When other quarterbacks struggled to string together drives, Sanders worked with backups and made it work. His consistency was undeniable, but still the reps went elsewhere. And now, as the Panthers prepare to line up across from him, all the deflection and misdirection ends. This isn't just a preseason opener. This is a crossroads. For Shedeur, it's a shot that was never supposed to come. For the Browns, it's a problem they can't spin. If Sanders delivers, the whole depth chart crumbles. Everything they tried to hide becomes impossible to ignore. The fans will demand answers, and the locker room will know what they saw. And it's not just about one game. It's about everything that led up to this moment. The media pressure, the lack of support, the late signings meant to crowd his reps, the unspoken politics that shaped the Browns' decisions. Every inch of doubt placed on Sanders' shoulders is now fuel, and every rep he takes under the lights is a response to all of it. This team didn't want him to succeed, at least not yet, but now they can't stop it. With the others out of the picture, they've got no choice but to put Sanders in, and that means facing the possibility that the quarterback they buried might be the one fans rally behind, the one who turns camp politics upside down and rewrites the pecking order. It's telling that the Browns signed another quarterback right before this game. They didn't bring in Tyler Huntley for his resume. They brought him in for control. They needed a way to dilute Sanders' opportunity, to muddy the waters, to avoid giving him a clean runway to take over. But it might be too late. If Shedeur takes the field and shows the same accuracy, composure, and playmaking he showed in college, the Browns won't be able to explain it away. The excuses won't hold. The narrative won't survive. The fans aren't blind, and the NFL isn't quiet. Once a quarterback proves he's ready, there's no putting him back in the box. And if he does it with second stringers, with no timing or chemistry with the first team, that's not just impressive, it's damning for everyone who kept him out, because it proves he didn't need a system handed to him. He just needed a shot. And now that he has it, he's not looking back. Let's stop pretending this competition was ever fair. The quarterback depth chart has been nothing but a carefully constructed illusion. Joe Flacco leads it in name only, a player well past his prime, moving slower than most linemen, and holding on to past glories the league has long since moved on from. His place at the top isn't about performance, it's about comfort, familiarity, and denial. Behind him was Kenny Pickett, a player whose career stalled before it really started. Injuries, inconsistency, and lack of confidence have defined his time under center. And yet, somehow, the Browns kept him ahead of Sanders until he couldn't stay on the field long enough to fake it anymore. Then there's Dillon Gabriel. College standout, sure. But this isn't college. This is the league, where timing windows vanish in a blink, defenders close twice as fast, and every throw is a test. In camp, Gabriel's flaws became visible quickly. Under pressure, he hesitated. When the game sped up, he cracked. And now he's dealing with physical setbacks too. And through all of this chaos, Sanders remained focused. No spotlight, no hand-holding, no plays designed around him, just grit and execution, running with the backups, creating rhythm out of scraps, and maintaining a level of performance none of the others could match even with the starters. But instead of recognizing what they had, the Browns scrambled for a distraction. Tyler Huntley was brought in not to compete, but to complicate, to give the staff a reason not to commit, to provide cover when things got too loud, too real, too threatening. He's not here because he's better. He's here because he's safe. He plays the role, says the right things, and doesn't ruffle feathers. Huntley's signing wasn't about injury insurance. It was about PR. It was about diluting the urgency of Sanders' emergence. Because if Sanders takes over with a clear field and he dominates, the questions start flooding in. Why wasn't he given this chance earlier? Why was he ranked 4th? Why was he treated like a mascot when he could have been the future? That's the nightmare scenario for this front office, because once that happens, they can't go back. They can't bury Sanders under the roster again. They can't cite lack of experience when the film shows otherwise. And they can't justify sticking with Flacco or Pickett when the youngest, sharpest, most dynamic quarterback on the field wears number 3. Sanders isn't just auditioning for a spot on the roster. He's forcing the franchise into a decision they didn't want to make. And every throw he completes under pressure, every drive he commands, every audible he nails it all pushes the Browns closer to the cliff. They can either jump into the future or get exposed trying to hang on to the past. This is no longer about reps, it's about reality, and the truth is, catching up fast. The ownership tried to separate itself from the pick early. Jimmy Haslam went out of his way to say he wasn't the one who pushed for Sanders, signaling to the media that this wasn't his quarterback. That's not just distancing, it's sabotage in a suit. It gave the coaching staff permission to ignore Sanders. It let the rest of the league know this was a placeholder pick, not a franchise investment. But now that silence is turning into noise. And once Sanders steps onto the field, that noise becomes undeniable. The Browns created a situation they can no longer manage with whispers or narratives. Because if Sanders puts on a show, if he moves the ball, reads the field, and scores points, they're cornered. And they know it. They tried to manage the story. They tried to shape it around veteran presence, system comfort, and quarterback depth. But they never planned for talent to break through all that. Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to be here, not yet. Not like this. But now that the moment has arrived, they can't duck it. He's not coming in with ideal conditions. No timing with the starters, no chemistry built through reps, no packages designed for his strengths. And yet, none of that matters if he delivers. Because if Sanders performs well without the support structure the others were given, it sends a message that can't be walked back. That kind of performance isn't luck, it's leadership. It's command. It's proof that while the front office played politics, he stayed locked in. It shows that potential wasn't something waiting to develop. It was always there, waiting to be recognized. The stage is set. Bank of America Stadium will be watching. The league will be watching. And most importantly, so will everyone who's ever been sidelined because of a perception rather than performance. Sanders is stepping onto that field, not just to prove himself, but to prove a system wrong. This isn't about legacy, name, or hype. It's about results. And the results are already coming into focus. When the quarterbacks ahead of him crumbled, Sanders remained steady. While others relied on status to keep their spot, he earned every look through action alone. Now the gap is visible. And if he excels, the Browns front office faces a choice. Do they ride the wave or resist it? Because there is no middle ground anymore. Keeping him benched after a breakout performance won't just raise eyebrows, it'll spark a fire. From fans, from teammates, from the media, from anyone paying attention. This isn't just about a roster anymore. This is about legitimacy. The Browns risk everything if they continue to sideline someone who's proven he belongs. Players in the locker room know what they see. Coaches know what clicks on the field. Once a leader emerges, Trying to suppress that momentum only makes things worse. That's why the timing of Huntley's arrival looked so calculated. It gave them the flexibility to share reps. It bought time. It allowed them to dilute the Sanders effect if it got too strong. But that tactic won't hold up under performance. You can't hide a quarterback who outplays everyone else. Not in this league. And Sanders isn't just playing to make the team. He's playing to make history. If he delivers the way his college tape suggested, the way flashes in camp hinted at, then every excuse crumbles. Every doubt looks personal. Every delay becomes a stain on the franchise. Fans aren't blind. They see the pecking order doesn't reflect production. They know when a player's being boxed out, and if Sanders shines on Friday, they won't just celebrate. They'll demand answers. Why was this player hidden? Why was he downplayed? Why wasn't he developed? And there won't be any easy answers. This goes beyond preseason rotations. This is a power shift. If Sanders steps up, leads drives, and commands the huddle like a veteran, he takes control of the narrative. He moves from placeholder to centerpiece, from fourth string to focal point. The Browns will either adjust to reality or expose their priorities, because it'll be clear this wasn't about talent, it was about control. And the moment Sanders proves he's the better option, any resistance to that truth will feel like sabotage. And here's what makes it worse for the Browns. This story has layers. A quarterback with a famous father, a front office trying to control headlines, a player buried on the depth chart who refuses to go quietly. Every detail becomes part of the storm, and once that storm goes public, the team won't be able to outrun it, because this is bigger than just one player's rise. It's about the people watching those who've been overlooked, boxed in, underestimated. Sanders becomes a symbol, not just a signal caller. If he thrives, the system that kept him down starts to shake. The league loves its traditions, it loves its structure, but it also knows when something real shows up. And real always breaks through eventually. Shedeur Sanders isn't just stepping into a preseason game. He's stepping into a moment designed by circumstance, but powered by purpose. He didn't ask for this timing, but he's ready for it. Calm, locked in, sharp. He knows what's on the line, and that's why the Browns can't stop it now. The team may have tried to hide him, but the spotlight has found him anyway. And if he delivers on that stage, there's no turning back. Not for him, not for them, not for anyone who's been watching. This is how change begins in a game no one thought would matter, in a moment built from rejection, silence, and misdirection. And now, with the ball in his hands, Shedeur Sanders has a chance to turn it all around, not with noise, but with execution. One performance can change everything, and that's exactly what Friday night might deliver. The crowd didn't fully realize what they were witnessing, not at first, but by the end of the second quarter, the whispers had turned into stunned silence, then into roars that shook the stadium. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just competent, he was electrifying, calm in the pocket, precise under pressure, moving the ball with a rhythm the Browns' offense hadn't shown in years, and by halftime, it was undeniable. The rookie they buried just embarrassed an entire franchise on national television. Every drive told a story the team had tried to suppress. Every completed pass was a reminder of the talent they'd overlooked. By the time Sanders walked into the tunnel, head high and unfazed, the questions were already flooding in, and this time, there would be no spinning them. What happened in Charlotte wasn't just a strong showing, it was a full-blown takeover. A quarterback playing with second stringers looked like the best passer the Browns had fielded since before fans can remember. He didn't just move the chains, he took control. He made reads pre-snap, adjusted protections, and delivered the football with poise and purpose. This wasn't a project, this was a professional. And now the franchise is in crisis. In the press conference that followed, reporters swarmed the coaching staff. The first question wasn't about the playbook, the running backs, or the score. It was simple. What now? Because now the excuses are gone. The not ready label doesn't stick. The needs development line sounds ridiculous. You can't hide behind depth when the fourth guy on the chart just made the first guy look like a backup. The cameras caught everything, and the tape doesn't lie. In the locker room, veterans were seen dapping Sanders up. Receivers who had struggled with other QBs were suddenly catching in stride. Even linemen were blocking longer, knowing he wouldn't panic. Something shifted. The air changed. Everyone felt it. That's what happens when a leader walks into the building and proves himself under pressure. Meanwhile, the The front office looked like they'd seen a ghost, because this wasn't supposed to happen. They'd hedged against it with late signings and padded press statements. They thought they had time. They thought the fans would buy into the slow rollout. They thought hiding Sanders behind aging quarterbacks would keep the questions away for at least a season. They were wrong, and now those same fans are watching clips on loop, sharing highlights, breaking down footwork, pocket movement, and third down conversions like it's playoff week. It's no longer about potential, it's about production. And Sanders produced more in a half than the others managed in an entire training camp. Even the national media couldn't resist. By midnight, the biggest shows were already reshuffling their coverage. Headlines blared with phrases like QB battle over, Sanders QB won, and the Browns got exposed. And just like that, the momentum shifted. This wasn't a feel-good story anymore. This was a football problem, a very real, very public, very unavoidable football problem. Because if the Browns continue to push Flacco or Pickett as starters after what Sanders just did, it won't just look like incompetence, it'll look like sabotage. The locker room will feel it first. Players aren't dumb. They know when someone is the real deal. They see the zip on the ball. They feel the timing of the routes. And they respond to leadership that comes naturally, not through politics. If the Browns try to ignore it, they'll lose the room. Then come the fans, and they won't be patient. They've waited years for something, anything to believe in, and now that belief has a name, a jersey, and a highlight reel. Try to put it back on the shelf, and the backlash will be loud. Even worse for the front office, there's no clean way to walk this back. You can't pretend this was the plan. You can't point to development when the youngest quarterback outperformed the rest with less preparation. You can't deflect to system fit or vet experience when the rookie just carved up an NFL defense with backup receivers. This is the kind of performance that rewrites roles, that reshuffles power dynamics, that ends careers and starts eras. And now the organization has a choice to make. They can double down on the past and pretend everything's fine, or they can acknowledge what just happened and start preparing for the future. But they can't do both. Not after this. Because Shedeur Sanders didn't just play well. He made it clear he belongs. And once a quarterback does that, the game changes. Expectations shift. Excuses disappear. And the next step becomes obvious. Either elevate him or get out of the way. We can keep this going.